our houses. You'll see when we come over there, the train. He's trying to tell a little story. You know, the Irish, the diversity of the neighborhood. Maryland was a state with, you know, a huge number of free blacks after the Civil War, so there was a mix of people in this neighborhood even then. And it's really messed up. Yeah.
Welcome to the Irish Railroad Workers Museum. Our humble little townhouses here are original townhouses built on the estate of James McHenry. Welcome.
But they all said that the earth is a commons and that you owe the community rent for holding land. And Henry George wrote a book about it called Progress and Poverty, and nobody paid attention to his book until he became a correspondent for the Irish World, and he got sent to Ireland. He talked about the land problem in Ireland, and the Irish World was a New York City newspaper. So all the Irish Americans thought of him as Irish, even though he was Episcopalian, which is exactly the wrong religion to be for the Irish. But
well, that's okay though.
But
we've learned to be welcoming.
He became hugely popular with the early labor movement with Terence Powderly and the Knights of Labor, and labor became enormously popular when he got involved for reasons, part of which are his contribution, but a lot of it is that the Catholic Church had condemned the labor movement, and because the Knights of Labor was originally founded by Masons, and they incorporated all these Masonic rituals, and the Catholic Church treated the Masons as enemies of the church. So one of the reasons they became popular is Terence Powderly made everything public except the list of members. And he did not make the list of members public because there were no labor protections at all at that time. So you would be fired if they knew you belonged to a union. It was just automatic. You joined a union, you're fired. And only 0.5% of the workforce had union membership, and they didn't have contracts. Almost nobody had a contract. The printers union. There were some people in the printers union that had a contract, and it just exploded because they took on the banks, the land monopolists, and the railroads. That was their and the people who made arguments against labor back then were making the same arguments they make today, but the American people said, but labor's taking on the banks, the land monopolists, and the railroads, and that's the real problem. So we're not going to listen to you whine about labor.
George's basic proposal?
To get rid of all the taxes except on the value of land. And at that time there weren't, all the taxes back then, most of government was funded from local property taxes. And the federal government had tariffs, and I don't know what the state governments had. Because Pennsylvania didn't have sales tax till the 1950s, and I don't think we had income tax until well after the federal government had it. So I think it was property taxes, and I imagine I have to look this up to see if the state had like state property taxes. Where at?
Allentown, actually, Emmaus. Right
Well,
now.
Allentown now has a land value tax.
Oh, really?
Yes, and the irony of that, most of the land value tax places were put in by Democrats. But Allentown's land value tax was put in by Pat Toomey. And the first political thing he did was he got on the Home Rule Study Commission, and he insisted that they have a plank that reduces the taxes on improvements and increases the taxes on land. So we have this basically very conservative state senator or U.S. senator who got his start doing what was originally the progressive proposal. and it's, we have support from across the political spectrum, and we have opposition from across the political spectrum.
Did George himself propose the split rate tax, or like reducing the property?
Well, he
On
proposed
improvements?
it being gradual, so that presumes that it's that in between it being a land value, a single tax is what people call it. In between that utopian outcome and the current situation, that there would be a gradual reduction in building taxes and a gradual increase in land taxes. And at that time, I mean, now we have to go for a gradual reduction in wage taxes and a gradual reduction in sales taxes and stuff. But yeah, at that time it was, I think property tax was most of the tax.
Okay.
I know land paid half the tax base in 1910, or at least Mason Gaffney made that claim. And if land paid half of it, then property tax had to pay most of it. So all there was besides property tax at that time was tariffs.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan.
Recognize the historical value of the house. Major family demolition back in 1990. There's their 5 houses together. With the A-Rider in the back there. Yeah. He's coming from College Market, which is in that direction. And of course the neighborhood's always been integrated. Kids are always playing in the street. We see them every day. Actually playing in the playground. Yeah, right. And of course they came over, found a lot of work with the railroad. Yeah. You notice the engine number?
Yeah, 3